A very good evening and welcome along to European Athletics live coverage of meeting Internacional Ourense. This is a World Athletics Indoor Tour Challenger meeting coming to you live from Ourense, which is a city in the northwest of Spain, the Galicia region. A city of about 100,000 people, just north of the Portuguese border. And as I mentioned, it is a Challenger level meeting on the World Athletics Indoor Tour. And we're pretty early on. There's been some underage events throughout the day, but now it's time for the elites to do their thing at the Exporense Arena. And the first event that will be coming up on the track will be the women's 400 meters. We're first of all going to have the women's B final of the 400 meters, followed by the A final. We're running just a little bit behind schedule, maybe 10 or 15 minutes it looks like, and at the moment the women's high jump is ongoing. So that is the current state of play, as you see in the women's high jump. Bar currently at 170. Anabela Neto of Portugal leading the way ahead of Marta Arujo of Portugal. And then it is Iria Solera of Spain back in third. 165 she cleared, but one failure recorded at 170, as indeed does Marta Arujo. Only athletes so far to go clear at 170 is Anabela Neto. And a second time failure there for Iria Solera Movilla of Spain. But now we're switching back to the track. And it is in fact the A final of the women's 400 meters. So I think the B final already just took place before we came on air. But there are the four athletes for the A final of the women's 400 meters. And a very strong final it is. And Irish fans, fear not, Sophie Becker has not switched her allegiance to France. That is a little bit of glitch on the entries, but she is very much Irish. And she will probably be the favourite here for this in lane 5, the Irish woman from Wexford. And the athletes in this race will try and blast through the lineup here at quite short notice, but there is, I think they have amalgamated some of this field by the looks of things, because there was only 4 athletes on the entries, but in lane 3 it is Ines Oitav and Pascual. In lane 4, Barbara Gamblor Garcia. In lane 5 is Sophie Becker, and she is blasting to the lead at the moment through that opening 100 metres. And then in lane 6 from Portugal it is Karina Vanessa Pereira. But Becker, I mentioned, she's got a season's best of 52.82, and she is running very fast here through this opening 150. Comes up to the bell now. Let's see what's on the clock. It looks like about 25 flat as she goes through with a sizable advantage at the moment. It is Sophie Becker of Ireland, who came so close to a medal in the 4x400 metres at the Olympics. Ireland coming home in 4th. She played a starring role in that lead-off leg there, and she has started this indoor season in very strong fashion. She has about a 5-6 metre advantage at the moment as she rounds the last turn. It is Sophie Becker of Ireland powering up to the finish now. How quick can she go? It's going to be a very clear win for her. It looks like Vanessa Pereira coming through in second, but clock doesn't yet stop. We'll wait for official confirmation. But it was a very decisive victory there for Sophie Becker. Becker, who is a 6-time national champion in Ireland, 4 times outdoors, 2 times indoors. She's got the bouquet of flowers, a congratulatory hug to Karina Vanessa Pereira, and a very good win there for Sophie Becker, who clocked 52.82. That was in France just about 3 weeks ago. And she had a spin out over 200 metres as well just after that in 23.67. But Becker has come into this indoor season in good form. And most importantly, she is healthy, because she had a bit of a nightmare run with injury last year, had a navicular stress fracture. And then when she eventually got over that, and all athletes who've had a navicular stress fracture can tell you it is one of the worst injuries you can get due to the lack of blood flow. Takes a very long time to heal, 4 or 5 months or so. But she got back from that, and then she ended up tearing her hamstring in the summer. But she still made it to the World Championships in Tokyo. Wasn't at her very best self there, but has come into this season shaping up a lot better, and I'm sure will be targeting her indoor personal best of 52.64, which she ran 4 years ago now. That was outdoors, of course. She has run 51.13, but a good win there for Sophie Becker of Ireland. And it looks like the official results haven't quite come through yet. The timing system just running a little behind, but I'll give you that update, and perhaps we'll get the graphic of that whenever it does come through. But that was the A final of the women's 400 metres, a decisive win for Sophie Becker of Ireland ahead of Carina Vanessa Pereira of Portugal. So back to the women's high jump, which is ongoing. There's plenty of field action coming up over the next few hours. We'll be on air until about 8:20 or so local time in Spain, which is of course 7:20 or so if you're in Britain or Ireland, or indeed Portugal. But now we'll introduce some of the men who will be competing in the long jump, and this is a very strong men's long jump. There is Sergio Coelho Bereco, and there are a number of very strong long jumpers in this one. Sergio Coelho is one of them. 785. His indoor personal best, 776 this year though. Gerson Vidal of Venezuela. And then Aniel Molina, who is an 8:13 jumper at his best. That was in Havana last year. Outdoors. Indoors, his best is 791. That was in Salamanca last year. And he'll be one to watch, the 21-year-old. Gerson Balde of Portugal, the 26-year-old, is an 8:20 jumper outdoors, but indoors. Just last weekend in Braga, a Portuguese indoor record of 8:32. The 26-year-old comes into this in flying form. Now, this man is another who will certainly be one to watch. Lester Lescay of Spain. Formerly at Cuba, of course. Transferred his allegiance last year and finished 8th in the world final in Tokyo. And then Cuba's Jorge Hodelin, the 18-year-old, a real rising star. It is just a production line of good long jumpers coming out of Cuba. He jumped 8:34 last year, a Cuban under-20 record. And Cuba, of course, has had some very, very good long jumpers, both at under-20 and indeed senior level. Tiago Pereira there. He's jumped 750 at his best. Here is Raul Cortizo Bernades. 750 his best indoors. And then Unai Lorero Arojo, 727 his best. And doesn't he look up for this? He's certainly enjoying himself, that's for sure. So men's long jump just getting underway now. And we also have action ongoing in the men's pole vault. That's getting underway at the same time. And of course the women's high jump is edging towards the business end. Next event on track, it will be the men's 60-meter hurdles heats. And just checking if the results of that women's 400 are now official. Indeed they are. 53.27 it was for Sophie Becker. Takes victory ahead of Carina Vanessa Pereira of Portugal, 54.07. And then it was Inés Oitaven of Spain back in third, 54.72. So a good win for Becker of Ireland, 53.27. And we go back for a moment and catch some of the men's pole vault. And we'll try and get up to speed as we see Martinez Garcia goes clear at 4.70. So quite a Modest heights so far, but that will be getting a whole lot trickier soon enough. Jorge Martinez Garcia goes clear, and we're just getting underway in that men's pole vault. Back to the women's high jump though. And we have had a lot more of the action so far playing out in the women's high jump. And it is Cuba's Daxi Adelina Brisson who still leads there. She's up and over 175, but Anabela Neto of Portugal facing her third attempt now at 175. She's in second place, so let's see if Neto can go clear and can join Brisson at the next height. Anabela Neto, third and final attempt at 175 for Neto, and she gets it. Brilliant clearance there from Neto. She will join Daxi Adelina Brisson at the next height of 180 as we look back to the men's pole vault and a failure for Granero Jimenez. As I mentioned, this is the opening height in the men's pole vault, quite early days. And track fans, fear not, there will be action upcoming. But plenty of field action as well for all the field event aficionados, with action ongoing simultaneously in the women's high jump, men's pole vault, and indeed the men's long jump. The men's long jump, I think, the real standout field event today. A number of 8 meter plus men in there. I mentioned Lester Lescay, 8:35 his best. Jorge Hodelin, rising star of Cuban long jumping. Be fascinating to see how he goes as well. He was peppering the 8 meter barrier throughout last year and indeed surpassing it. But back on track, it's time for the first semi-final. Well, I guess we could call it a heat or a semi-final of the men's 60 meter hurdles. There it is. Ousmane Jumo of Guinea-Bissau, the 24-year-old, has a best of 8:10. Gerson Vidal Izaguirre has a best of 7:86. The 30-year-old Venezuelan should go well here. It will be the first two, by the way, to advance automatically, and then the first three in each semi-final will go through automatically, and then 2 time qualifiers. Angel Diaz Rodriguez there. Then Jorge Juan Canton. João Alexandre Ribeiro Fontela. So the full lineup for the first heat of the men's 60 meter hurdles: in lane 1, Aitor Fernandez Gayoso of Spain; lane 2, Ousmane Jumo of Guinea-Bissau; lane 3, Gerson Vidal Izaguirre of Venezuela; lane 4, Abdelkader Larinaga of Portugal; lane 5, Stanislav Stankov of Bulgaria; lane 6, Angel Diaz Rodriguez of Spain; lane 7, Jorge Juan Canton of Spain; and lane 8, João Alexandre Ribeiro Fontela of Portugal. Look out for Stanislav Stankov and Abdelkader Kader. They're in lanes 4 and 5, along with Angel Diaz Rodriguez of Spain in 6. Well, there are a lot of empty lanes there, as you can see, so I been paying more attention. But coming up on the outside there, it is Angel Diaz Rodriguez in lane 6. He looks to take that one. Angel Diaz Rodriguez. And also going very well there, it was in lane 3, Gerson Vidal Izaguirre. Not much to choose between them. Also going well out in lane 7 there was Jorge Juan Canton. But it looked like there, I think, in lane 6, Angel Diaz looked to have shaded that one. Mentioned he was one of those to watch. And it looks like he has got the job done. And we'll be seeing him competing in the final later on. That final coming up at about 7:50 it is local time, Central European time that is. But one more heat to come in the men's 60-metre hurdles. As we go back to the pole vault, where the bar is currently at 490, it looks like. It was just... no, I think it is actually still at 470. One failure for Javier Granero of Spain. And next event up on track will be the second heat in the men's 60-metre hurdles. Meanwhile, in the women's high jump, Lexi Adelina Brisson leads the way there. She cleared 180 at the first time of asking, the Cuban. And a first-time failure for her one remaining competitor, Anabela Neto of Portugal. But now it's back to the track for the second semi-final in the men's 60-metre hurdles. Athletes just doing their final run-throughs here. And we're due to have 8 athletes here going to the line in this one. But back to the long jump, because Jorge Odalin of Cuba, the 18-year-old rising star, and you'll see why when he hits that board. Look at that elevation. And he soars through the air, does Odalin. And let's see what the 18-year-old has produced. He was the Cuban under-20 champion last year. He jumped a remarkable 8:34 to win that. A real rising star, still only 18 years of age. He qualified for the World Championships in Tokyo last year. Went out in qualification round there. But Jorge Odalin, certainly a name to watch. As you can see in the background, second heat of the men's 60-metre hurdles will be upcoming quite soon. And one of the men to watch there will certainly be Luis Francois Mendy of Senegal, who's a 7:68 performer this year. So back to the women's high jump. And it is another failure for Anabela Neto. That is a third-time failure, and unfortunately for her, that brings the competition to a conclusion. She bows out with a best of 175, which she went over at the third attempt, but it's only good enough for second on the day. Her fellow Portuguese athlete, Marta Araujo, back in third with 170, but the winner will be Daxi Adelina Brisson. As we see confirmation that Aniel Molina going over 8 metres there, taking command in that men's long jump, but it is still very early days. And then a clearance in the pole vault as well, but it's still very early days in the pole vault. Bar currently at 490. Was Javier Granero of Spain. Looks like he'll be next up. Marco Rodriguez Sanz of Spain. Rodriguez Garcia in the men's long jump. But time to switch back to the track because we're preparing for the second semi-final. Hugo Vasquez Perez there. He's going in lane 3. Rafael Santos of Portugal will be going in 4. And then this man will be the favourite, Luis Francois Mendy of Senegal. He's been in very, very good form this year. 768 just recently in Nantes. David Vicente will be going in lane 7. He's an 807 man at his best. 22-year-old. And then on the outside, Manuel Vasquez of Spain. Doesn't have any season's best listed, but 902 you can see there. He has run 811, which is significantly quicker than 902. But the man to watch certainly will be Luis Francois Mendy of Senegal. The 26-year-old, he's in the dark grey strip there in the middle of these 5 athletes. He was a semi-finalist in the 110 hurdles in Tokyo last year at the World Championships, African champion in 2024 and All-Africa Games champion also that same year. Set the national record for Senegal a few years ago, 13:18. And as I mentioned, at the age of 26, running quicker than ever, indoor PB just a few weeks ago in Nantes of 7:68. That does put him head and shoulders above this field, but Hugo Vasquez in lane 3 may keep very close order here because Vasquez has run 7:85. He's yet to dip under 8 this year, but very close recently with an 8:01 in Salamanca. And away they go, and Mendy off to a very clean start. Vasquez putting up the best chase at the moment, but Luis Francois Mendy, as I mentioned, is pretty much a class apart. Luis Francois Mendy sprints to victory in the second heat of the men's 60-metre hurdles. And a convincing win it is. You can see a replay of that. Vasquez running well with him to halfway, but the class of Mendy eventually just telling in the end. He really does assert there over that 4th and 5th barrier. Pulls clear by a couple of metres. And then second place looks like Vasquez. But quite close for second and third. And that was a meeting record, in fact, coming through on the system. Luis Francois Mendy, 7:69, a meeting record in the heat. Rafael Santos of Portugal it was who took second, 7:91, and then it was Hugo Vasquez of Spain back in third with 8:02. David Vicente fourth, 8:09. So Mendy, Santos and Vasquez all automatically advanced. David Vicente, we'll have to see if his 8:09 is good enough. I think it will be. In fact, it almost certainly is quick enough. I'll just confirm that. But back to the high jump, because the bar is now at 185 for this woman from Cuba, Daxi Adelina Brisson, the 23-year-old who jumped 193 last year in Havana. She's already been over 189 indoors this year, and that was just a couple of weeks ago in Moscow. Competed at the World Championships in Tokyo last year, went out in qualification there. But she was the Cuban high jump champion last year and very much an athlete on the rise, having gone over 193 for the first time ever last year. So Daxi Adelina Brisson in her first competition, I think, of this indoor season, looking to go over 185 here. Either way, it will be a successful first competition because she has already secured victory with that clearance at 180. Now, I think this is actually 184 she's attempting here. No, it is in fact 185, but either way, it is a failure. The planned series was to go up to 184, but she is obviously, with victory secured, she has the luxury to set the bar where she chooses. She chose to put it at 185, but a first-time failure there for the 23-year-old Cuban. Nice way to jump all the same when you know that victory is already in the bag. Now, what exactly is happening in the men's long jump? Because this is a very, very high quality competition for a challenger level meeting. As we see confirmation there. Competition not yet finished, but Daxi Adelina Brisson takes victory so far with 180, but she may well go higher than that. In the men's long jump, Aniel Molina of Cuba leads the way with 807, ahead of Jorge Odelin of Cuba, 794. And then Lester Lescay back in third with 780. Here's Gerson Vidal. He's currently at the bottom of the rankings due to his first round failure or break. Let's see if he can hit the board right. That looked iffy on the board from Izagirre. And that indeed is confirmed as a failure, unfortunately, for Gerson Vidal Izagirre. So a bit of pressure coming on him. Not an ideal way to start this competition for the Venezuelan. But he will have one more chance to make good and to secure himself a spot in the top 8 of this competition and go on and get another 3 jumps. Otherwise, it's going to be a very early evening and a swift exit from the competition for Izzy. For Molina in the long jump, as we look back to Adelina Brisson, second attempt for her at 185. And a second time failure, but she'll have one more try to try and set things right. And see if she can get herself over 185. Either way, victory is secured for the Cuban. That was accomplished at 180, but she will feel a whole lot better about this competition if she can get over 185 and edge closer to her indoor personal best, which is 189. She set that PB just a couple of weeks ago in Moscow. Now back to the long jump. We are in the second round at the moment of the long jump. Gerson Balde, who was in such fine form. I mentioned Gerson Balde, 8:32 national record just last weekend in Braga. João Quello of Portugal. This is the C final of the men's 400 meters. And João Quello will certainly be a favourite for this. Helped Portugal into the final last year at the World Championships in the 4x400. Fellow Portuguese athlete who was a teammate then will be one lane inside him here, Omar Elktahib. And there's Lucas Boa de Miguel in lane 4. He is a 45.2 man outdoors, 46.2 indoors. This year though, 47.58 his quickest. And then completing the lineup for the C final of the men's 400 meters in lane 3, it is Inigo Perez, who has a best this year of 49.44 seconds, but at his quickest indoors, he's run 47.3. So, quickest man in the field on personal bests, indoors and outdoors, is going on the outside lane. 8-time national champion, the Portuguese indoor and outdoor record holder João Quello. The 26-year-old, he has run 44.79 outdoors Indoors, his PB is 45.86. Both of those are national records in 2023. He was a World University Games champion. It will be a surprise if anyone is able to go with him here, but Omar El-Kahib in lane 5 might stand the best chance, as we see a third and final attempt at 185 there. And no success there for Adelina. So away they go. And it is the two athletes, the club mates in the sporting singlets, going best through this opening lap. El-Kahib at the moment has the lead, and he is going to take that lead to the bend. He has gone out aggressive here. El-Kahib passes through 200 meters. Back in second, it is João Coelho. And it looks like Coelho is getting ready to launch a strike here. These two have pulled clear of Lucas Bua of Spain. Looks like it's between the two Portuguese clubmates. They were teammates last year in that world final in the 4x4 in Tokyo. But now it's mano a mano, head to head down the home straight. Who's going to get it? El-Kahib digs in and kicks on. He pulls clear, 46.8 unofficially on the clock as that stops. But we'll get confirmation of that. But a decisive victory there for Omar El-Kahib. He's got the nose strip as well. Jury is out on whether they work or not, but usually the distance runners you see trying to use such breathing devices as those, but El-Kahib takes victory in 46.71. It's been confirmed that now. João Coelho back in second, 47.12, and Lucas Bua of Spain back in third, 47.30. But Omar El-Kahib, a decisive victory for the 24-year-old who was the Portuguese outdoor champion last year. And indeed, this year he's been in very good form, 46.42 in Kaunas in Lithuania just a couple of weeks ago. And a decisive victory there for El-Kahib in 46.71. Great clash between the clubmates from Portugal. And upcoming on the track will be the B final of the men's 400 metres, followed by the A final. And Spain will be to the fore there through Oscar Husios, no doubt. But for now, back to the men's long jump. And I believe this is Tiago Pereira, who jumped 7.22 in the opening round. That has him down in 6th. I think that was a foul. It looked very iffy on the board. Let's watch. Oh, I'm wrong. The white flag goes in the air. That was all good. And we see the current lay of the land. Jorge Odalin leading the way at the moment. 8.18. That came in round 2. Aniel Molina, his fellow Cuban, back in second. And then Lester Lescay back in third. Of course, formerly representing Cuba, Lescay, but these days competing for Spain. He transferred his allegiance last year successfully and indeed donned the Spanish colours, the World Championships in Tokyo. So, Pereiro, 7.21 for him in round 2. He stays down in 6th. No improvement for the Portuguese athlete. Time for a bit of pole vaulting. And the bar currently at 5.10, I believe. An impressive clearance there. I think that was Jorge Martinez Garcia. But there is the current lie of the land in the men's pole vault. Many athletes just passing at the moment. Those athletes down the bottom. The next height will, I think, be 5.10. But still very early days in that men's pole vault. And then it is Rodriguez Sanz. First time failure for him at 5:10. There is confirmation of the qualifiers for the men's 60-metre hurdles final. And comfortably the fastest of them is Luis Francois Mendy of Senegal. That Spanish flag should not be beside his name, but seen some glitching nationalities in the system today. Rafael Santos, 7:91, and also under 8 seconds, Angel Diaz Rodriguez and Gerson Vidal Iziguirre of Venezuela. And not Spain. So, back to the men's long jump. And Jorge Odalin still leading here with 8:18. Ahead of Aniel Molina and then Lester Lesgai. So Unai Lorero Arojo, that was. Just waiting on official confirmation of what he jumped there. But still pretty early days as we see confirmation of that C final. Omar El Khatib taking victory with a very impressive last 50 especially. 46.71 ahead of his clubmate and compatriot João Coelho, 47.12, and then Lucas Bua back in third with 47.30. B final and A final still to come. Back to the long jump runway. And the impressive height there by Sergio Coelho Bereco. 2 failures to open the competition. And the measuring tape. It's all old school measuring tape today. No lasers involved. But he looks like he is on the board. We'll get confirmation of what exactly that jump was. But for now, the focus turns back to the track because it's time for the B final of the men's 400 metres, and on the outside Erickson Tavares of Portugal, who has a best indoors of 46.72, 46.89 this year. Look out for David Garcia. He's run 46.12 this season. That was in Sabadell, his indoor personal best. There is Joshua Folds of Great Britain, the 25-year-old, who has run 47.44 this year, 4th at the British Championships indoors just last weekend in Birmingham. So arriving in good form. And then in lane 3 it is Andre Franco, the 21-year-old Portuguese athlete. 47.69 his best indoors that was run last year. This year he's run 48.22. So looking across what people have run so far this year, you have to imagine David Garcia in lane 5 will be a big threat as we see the Venezuelan Iziguirre in round 3 there of the men's long jump. We're waiting for a measurement on that from Iziguirre Rangel. 7.06 it is. He stays in 9th position, but crucially he's on the board. Back on track for the B final of the men's 400 metres. In lane 3, Andre Franco of Portugal. In lane 4, Joshua Folds of Great Britain. In lane 5, David Garcia of Spain. And in lane 6, Erickson Tavares of Portugal. Tavares competed for Portugal in the European Indoor Championships last year, and indeed the World Relays and indeed World Championships. He's a key member of that 4x4 battalion from Portugal. We'll see what he can produce here. He goes on the outside, but this should be quite close between the two men in the outside lanes, and Joshua Folds also in very good form. But at the moment it looks like David Garcia has gone out very hard. I mentioned he came into this in very good form with that indoor PB just recently in Sabadell of 46.12. And the man in the all-white strip has command as they pass through 200 metres in 22 and change. There's a decent pace being churned out here by David Garcia, but Erickson Tavares is very much in his slipstream and will be trying to launch an attack off this final bend. It is Joshua Folds back in third, and then a little bit of a gap back to Andre Franco. But at the moment, it is the Spaniard. David Garcia turns for home with control, but here comes Tavares. Can Tavares get him? It's Garcia and Tavares to the line. It's so close. 46-2 on the clock unofficially. Wow, who got that one? Garcia was all out, but Tavares was charging, and I think Garcia might have got that one. He was the favourite, the 20-year-old. He is a bit of a rising star of Spanish 400-metre running. Competed for them while still a teenager at the Europeans back in 2024, and indeed at the Olympics as well. He competed in the 4x400 metre heats in Paris 2 years ago. What an experience that must be to go to the Olympics as a teenager. But David Garcia is maturing well now that he's entering the senior ranks. He helped Spain last year to win European under-23 4x400 metre gold, and he has got the job done, I think, here, but let's await confirmation of that. Official results have just come through, and indeed it is Garcia taking the victory. As we look back to Gerson Balde in the men's long jump, it's a pity the camera angle can't quite show us where exactly that landed, but Balde there looked to be well behind the board, and I think he just drops his feet just a little too early there. I'm far from a long jump expert, but it is quite clear he looked to have taken off a little bit before the board there, and yeah, you can see he's just frustrated. Not sure whether that was a takeoff or landing or something in between, but Gerson Balde certainly not producing the magic he did last weekend in Braga with that stunning Portuguese record of 8:32. So a bit of a consultation time for him with his coach, and just to round up what we saw in that men's 400 metres before I got distracted by the long jump. But David Garcia did take victory in the end, 46-16. 1/100th of a second was all that was in it. Erickson Tavares of Portugal was charging out in lane 2, but didn't quite get there. And then it was Joshua Folds of Great Britain, 46-96, back in third. And then completing the lineup, or completing the results, I should say, Andre Franco of Portugal, 47-46. And here is Lester Lescay. Let's see what he can produce. 8:04 he jumped in round 2. It's impressive, but it's not. Doesn't have him in the lead at the moment. That does not look like an improvement, but we'll await official confirmation. And he is off the podium positions at the moment, is Lester Lescay, which shows what a quality long jump this is. 4 men already gone beyond 8 metres. You can see him just dropping those hips in the second last step, building up that momentum, and Lester Lescay goes quite close again to 8 metres, but it's no improvement on the 8:04. 7:96 for the Spaniard in round 3. He stays in 4th position in this men's long jump. So he's just joining the judges there and perhaps just having a look at some of the replays. I'm sure the judges have that camera footage of the takeoff. And we see an update as we are now approaching halfway in the men's long jump. Jorge Odelin is the last man we're waiting for to take his 3rd attempt, and he has command of the competition. The 18-year-old, he will be a name who will be around for a long time to come. One to watch for sure. 8:18, he leads here. What can he do in round 3? The elevation he gets off that board is just remarkable. But Jorge Odelin, excellent elevation off the board. He really is just spring-heeled, like he's on a trampoline once he hits it. But the man who set the Cuban under-20 record last year at 8:34, it's no improvement in round 3. 8:14 for Odelin. But he's still quite content because he has an 11 centimetre advantage at the moment over Gerson Balde of Portugal, who jumped 8:07 in that last round. Looked perfect there on the board for Odelin. And then back in 3rd at the moment, it is the other Cuban, Aniel Molina, who has who opened with 8:07, but no improvement since, with 2 fouls in the subsequent rounds. Next action on track, which is coming up in about 4 or 5 minutes' time. It's the A final of the men's 400 metres. And that will be a mostly Spanish affair. The likes of Oscar Husios, Manuel Guijarro, and Alberto Guijarro going up against the sole Portuguese athlete in the field, Ricardo dos Santos. So back, there is the confirmation of that win by David Garcia, 46.16. He held on, he had commanded the bell, and he held on ahead of Erickson Tavares. Joshua Foles taking 3rd place. And there is another look as we see Tiago Pereira, who fouls out in the 3rd round of the men's long jump. He stays in 7th with 7:22. Meanwhile, we haven't checked in too much yet or recently on the men's pole vault, but we'll go back over there now because Alex Garcia has gone over 5:10 and Ander Martinez also now over 5:10. Now this should be a cracking men's 400 metres. This is the A final of the men's 400 metres, and that is Manuel Guijarro. 46.16 is the benchmark. That's the current time posted in the B final by David Garcia. But in lane 6, Manuel Guijarro will be trying to break that. He has run 46.02 indoors. That was on this same track in Ourense 3 years ago, but he's only run 47.63 this year. Now, Oscar Husios, European indoor champion back in 2021. Husios, he really is an impressive operator, especially indoors. He has run 44.73 outdoors, but a national record, of course, for Spain a few years ago, indoors, 45.58. This is Ricardo dos Santos, who I believe he's still based in Britain. Runs for Thames Valley, the 31-year-old, a 10-time national champion for Portugal. 46.64, a Portuguese indoor record he ran back in 2021. His best this year, Dos Santos, 47.66. And this is Alberto Guijarro, 22-year-old, who ran his indoor personal best just last weekend in Antequera. Sorry, that was last month in Antequera, 47.71, but might struggle to go with some of the men outside him. But there shouldn't be much in this. But Husios in lane 5 has to be the favourite. 46.14 in Salamanca just 2 weeks ago. And Husios, he really is an impressive operator, particularly indoors, where he just utilises that speed over the first 200 metres to get to the break in front. I have no doubt he will attempt to do the same here. Guijarro will be in the lane outside him, his fellow Spaniard. Husios, at the age of 32, he is still running very, very, very well indeed. He was a European indoor silver medalist back in 2019, a champion at that same championships 2 years later. And just last year, he did help Spain to European indoor 4x4 silver. He'll have the World Indoors in his sights next month, now only 4 weeks away, and look out for him in the all-red strip there in lane 5. Husios, he blasts through the first 100 metres. He has Guijarro in his sights, his fellow Spaniard, and he is going past him around the bend, running very strongly there. Up the inside is Alberto Guijarro, but he's going to have to settle into third. It will be Manuel Guijarro in second, and no surprise to see Oscar Husios out front. He has command of this race at the moment. Now, how quick can he go, and can he hold on? Because Manuel Guijarro is starting to charge. He is in the slipstream again, and I've no doubt that Guijarro will come again and come wide in the home straight. Now, can Husios hold on? This is how he won his indoor title. Can he do it? Does he have enough to get to the line? Guijarro is coming, and Guijarro might get past, but no! It is Oscar Husios who sticks his chest out, digs deep, and gets across the line. That was an amazing finish. Manuel Guijarro was charging on the outside, but you can see the technique getting a bit ragged, and the 32-year-old Husios, who just kept his nerve when all around him perhaps were losing their technique, kept his form so well That's the value of experience. And Oscar Husias takes victory in the A final of the men's 400 metres. 46.97. Manuel Guijardo back in second with 47.02, and Ricardo dos Santos third, 47.78. But of course, the B final, we saw a meet record from David Garcia, 46.16 ahead of Erickson Tavares. So both of them go quicker than Usias, and indeed, given the rules, they will be eligible for overall victory. David Garcia will be the champion, but a great win there in what was the A final of the men's 400 metres from the wise old stager, Oscar Usias, running brilliantly once again. And the world indoors firmly in his sights, and perhaps looking to add a world indoor medal to the 4x4 medal he won at the European Indoors last year. But there's the state of play. We got a brief look at it. There it is again in the men's pole vault. The bar currently at 5:10. And mostly Spanish affair. This field is starting to thin out just a little. We're Rodrigo Alcobia will be taking his second attempt at 5:10. He had a first-time failure. Javier Granero of Spain, and indeed Marco Rodriguez of Spain, both also with two failures, or both have two failures. If Alcobia does not get over this, he'll be down to his last try, but let's see if he can go over 5:10 and join the five others who have gone clear. He just bails out of that one. Says, no, thank you. That's not going to be a clearance, so saves his energy, doesn't complete the sequence, complete the jump. So second time failure for Rodrigo Alcobia, and he, along with Marco Rodriguez and Javier Granero, will have a third and final attempt upcoming. So I know we had some technical issues, which meant that unfortunately not able to bring you the ambient sound from the arena this evening in the atmosphere. You're stuck with my voice, but I was able to listen to that, and my Spanish is not great, but I understood enough to know that he said he's very happy, and he said a big thank you to all the crowd. He was delighted with that win. David Garcia takes the overall victory in the men's 400 metres. He was, of course, in the B final, which turned out in essence to be the A final, because what a clash that was. David Garcia takes victory in the 400 metres in 46.14. Erickson Tavares of Portugal in second with 46.17. And just checking who finished third overall. Oscar Usias, 46.97, clocked the same time as the third place finisher in the B final. So we'll let them... Oh no, it was Joshua Foles, in fact. So 1, 2 and 3 all came from the B final. As we see Javier Granero. Third and final attempt for him at 5:10. Not to be. It was close. Another inch or two and he'd have been over that, but just comes down on the bar enough to send it rocketing back up into the air. As we see the current standings in the men's long jump. Plenty of road left to cover in that one. We are now past the halfway stage. The field will be thinned just a little, and those 8 men will be going on to take 3 more jumps. Mostly Cuban affair up front. Jorge Odelin, the 18-year-old rising star of Cuban long jumping. 8:18, he has command. Gerson Balde in second with 8:07, and Aniel Molina of Cuba third with 8:07. It looks like Molina has passed his 4th round jump. So perhaps an injury or an issue for Molina, or perhaps he's just taking a bit of a breather, a bit of a siesta, as they do in Spain. And maybe we'll see him back in rounds 5 and 6. But at the moment, Molina down in 3rd, as we see Rodrigo Alcobia. 3rd and final attempt for him at 5:10. And if you're wondering what's coming up next on the track, it's going to be some semi-finals of the women's 60 metres. We're just about 7 or 8 minutes away from the first of those. But here is Rodrigo Alcobia. 5:10 for the Portuguese athlete. And that again was very close. But no cigar ultimately for the Portuguese. He gave it a good attempt, but his competition comes to an end. He finishes down in, I think, 6th position. Joined to 6th at the moment, alongside Marco Rodriguez. And the women's shot put is also getting underway. We will have not too great of an idea about where those shots are landing from that particular angle, but at least we'll get to assess their technique. There are just 6 women, it looks like, in the shot put. The likes of Belén Twimil Fernandez of Spain certainly be to the fore, along with Eliana Bandera. They've both thrown over 18 metres. The others more modest heights, but Serena Vincent of Great Britain should be in contention as well. 17.78, her best outdoors. She has thrown a personal best indoors this year, though, of 17.33. So we'll see if we may well see a mark up towards 18 metres today. Back to the long jump. And Tiago Pereira of Portugal is on the runway in that Benfica vest. He charges down the runway. That was close to being a foul. And indeed it is the big, I was going to say red X, but it is technically a white X on a red background. But either way, it signals doom for Tiago Pereira. 4th round is an unsuccessful one. He stays in 8th position, 7.22, his best so far. Women's shot put is getting underway in about, well, in fact, it's actually running, I think, behind schedule. I'll keep you up to date on that as it does get underway. Here is Sergio Coelho. 7.28, his best, has him down in 7th at the moment. He has jumped 7.76 this year, has Coelho. So looking to improve on his 7.28. And that is a good effort. That looks to be around the 7.40, 7.50 kind of mark. Looked good on the board as well. But how good is it from Sergio Coelho? 7.28 is best, but we'll await that official measurement as we go back to the men's pole vault, where some of the kind of heavy hitters have passed a lot of the earlier heights. And there's an update on how things look as we move through round 4 in the men's long jump. Jorge Odelin, the rising star from Cuba, leads the way still with 8.18. Matching his age, 18 years of age, and he is already jumping 8.34 just last year outdoors. Now, Unai Loureiro, walk in. He produced here. The Spaniard, good height off the board there. He's currently down in 7th with 7.31. And just to confirm, it was 7.42 from Sergio Coelho in the last round. That moves him up to 6th. So Unai Loureiro demoted slightly by Coelho. And it was no improvement for Loureiro. 7:23 in round 4. He stays in 7th position. So next up on track, it will be the women's 60 metres. Heats coming up in about 3 minutes time or so. But a good chance to get caught up on just what's happening. Well, I say that, and then we do go back to the 60. So there it is, Sierra Ayaso of Spain. 8:08, her best. That was run this season. A reminder that the first 3 will go through in this. This is Noa Garcia, 7:83 athlete at her best, 7:86 this year. Cristina Garrido of Spain, she'll be one to watch here, 7:61. Has a good chance of making the final. 25-year-old. There's Paula Conde of Spain, just 17 years old. Ran her lifetime best for 60 metres, 7:63 just last weekend on this same track. So coming in great form, and will be eyeing a place in the final, but we'll be struggling to stay with this woman. Andrea Purica of Venezuela, the 30-year-old, set the Venezuelan 60-metre record back in 2017, all of 9 years ago, 7:20. But her season's best of 7:33 in Valencia last month. Would expect to see her very much to the fore in this first semi-final of the women's 60 metres. As we're completing the lineup, Beatriz Andrade of Portugal, the 24-year-old, 7:33 personal best. In lane 7, it was Genesis Capellan of Spain, 7:87 her best. That was run this season. And on the outside, Valeria Gonzalez Vasquez of Spain, the 18-year-old, was a best of 7:90. So the lanes to watch here, certainly going to be lanes 5 and 6 if this one goes to form. Andrea Purica of Venezuela will go in 5 in that red and navy strip. And then just to her left, as we look at them in the Sporting Club de Portugal colours, the green and white stripes, Beatriz Andrade, the 24-year-old who ran 7:38 this season, but personal best last year, 7:33. So not likely to be too much between Purica and Andrade here, but all they need is a top 3 finish to get into the final later on this evening. They go in lanes 5 and 6. And a brilliant start there from Purica in the middle, and no surprise to see Andrade is putting it up most to her at this point, but a brilliant performance from Purica. She does take victory. 7:2 on the clock, and that would be a big run for Purica if indeed she has managed to go under 7:30. But you can see she just got a bullet start there, did Andrea Purica. Really impressive. But Gerson Balde is on the long jump runway. Let's see what he can produce here in round 4. Currently in 2nd position, 8:07 his best. Now, what has he produced? He needs 8:18 to improve his position. Jorge Odelin continues to lead the way with 8:18, the 18-year-old Cuban, but Gerson Balde, who I mentioned, set that Portuguese indoor record just last weekend in Braga. He knows he has a jump in him big enough to win this, but he has not produced it just yet, because that was 7:92, that jump from Gerson Balde. He stays in 2nd place behind this man, Jorge Odelin. As we see confirmation, wow, a meeting record there it was from Andrea Purica of Venezuela, 7:22. That is a brilliant performance, just off the national record she ran 9 years ago. So at the age of 30, Andrea Purica is just about running as well as ever, and that was a huge season's best for Purica. She'll be big favourite in the final later on. But back to the long jump, because it is the leader, Jorge Odelin. That was a foul. I think you could see that pretty quickly as soon as his foot hit the board there. See it better here, but Plenty of his orange spike was on that blue panel. But again, Odelin does not essentially need to improve his position. He is the man with the keys to the kingdom at the moment, because that second round effort of 8.18 has him in firm command. But of course, Gerson Balde with that 8.34 national record earlier this week could strike in round 5 or 6. Meanwhile, the bar in the men's pole vault is now up to 5.30. We had a failure from Alex Gracia. And then Marco Rodriguez will be next. But back to the long jump, because Tiago Pereira of Portugal, who has fouled his last 2 attempts and is now down in 8th position with a best of 7.22. He's going to be trying to improve this. That looked a bit better on the board. I think he's going to get the white flag. Yeah, that looked really good on the board. Good elevation. Looks like he's just drifting out to the right a little bit there in the air. That can cost you a few centimetres, but we'll see what Pereira has produced. And in fact, that is a foul from Pereira. Oh no, we're in round 5, not round 4, so it's not a foul. But yet to come through his... That was 7.34, so a good improvement there for Pereira. Adds 12 centimetres, moves him from 8th up to 7th. Meanwhile, back on the pole vault runway. And Fabio Marco Fantova at 5.30 enters the competition. Meanwhile, in the long jump, Sergio Coelho will be next to see if he can improve on his best, which came in the last round, 7.42. He jumped in round 4. Leans back, few skips, and off into his usual routine, building speed on the runway, Sergio Coelho. And he does the opposite to Pereira. He goes out left in that pit. And let's see if he has improved on 7.42. Looked very good on the board there. Might have just been almost losing a little bit of control towards the latter part of that jump. But Sergio Coelho, 7.46 it is in round 5. That is a good improvement for him. Adds 4 centimetres to his best today and moves him to 6th. Or keeps him in 6th, in fact. Still relatively early days in the men's pole vault. I think there's 6 men still in this. And this is one of them, Isidro Leva. He goes clear at the first time of asking over 5.30. Impressive stuff from Isidro Leva. Meanwhile, back to the long jump. And Unai Loureiro in round 5. He comes out of that pit with energy there, which is usually a good sign. He is certainly beaming and radiating positivity. He's currently down in 8th position, but no improvement there. 7.20 it is for Unai Loureiro. So he stays in 8th, but he'll have one more chance to improve that. As we look back at that clearance from Isidro Leva. Now the bar, as I mentioned, at 5.30. And that is an impressive clearance there from Asier Añorga, the Spaniard. Añorga goes clear, having needed 2 attempts at 5.10, but no issues here at 5.30. He goes clear. Meanwhile, Lucas Rodriguez in the men's long jump, he's in 5th at the moment, sitting with a best of 7:52, which came in the first round. He would need a big jump to improve that because the 4 men out front are all over 8 meters. But it is an improvement. 7:65 for Rodriguez in the 5th round. So good step forward for him. Doesn't improve his position, but excellent jumping. Now we'll introduce some of the athletes in the women's shot put. That is Belén Tuaimil, the 31-year-old, who has a best outdoors of 18:80. Spanish record. Back in 2021, Mariana Camara has a best of 14:66 outdoors, 14:22 indoors. There's Eliana Bandeira of Portugal. Indoor PB 18:58. And then there is Gianna Lago. Was a best of 14:54, but it was a quick blast across some of the women's shot putters. We'll get to know them a bit better as the competition goes on over the upcoming hour and a quarter or so. Well, here is Lester Lescay, who's currently in 4th position in the men's long jump. Lescay, who was 8th in the world final in Tokyo last year, 3rd at the European Championships in Apeldoorn, European Indoor Championships in Apeldoorn last March, and he will have eyes, no doubt, on the World Indoors, which are now just 4 weeks away in Poland. But we saw the first semi-final of the women's 60 metres. Now it's time for semi-final 2. Just perhaps a few issues with the connection on the camera that is out there roving. But in lane 1 in this will be Marta Camaño, 7:90 her best. Then it is Arantxa Vasquez of Spain in lane 2, 7:76 her best. This is Nediam Nori Vargas of Venezuela, the 31-year-old, 7:37 her best. She's run that last year and this year, be heavily favoured to make the final. Here is Beatriz Castellano of Portugal, 7:33 her best. She ran that in Braga just last weekend. Big breakthrough for the 20-year-old. And then it is Gloria Hooper. Look out for her as well. The 33-year-old, 8-time national champion across the distances in Italy. 7:25 her best for 60 metres. 7:34 this year. Then it was Valeria Zapata of Spain, the 17-year-old who's run 7:74. Laura Rios of Spain, just 15 years old, only up against many seniors here. 7:78 her best for 60 metres. And then on the outside from Spain, Ana Alvarino Quintero, 8:25 her best. So the athletes to very much watch, or athletes to watch, should be those in lanes 3, 4 and 5. Nediam Vargas of Venezuela, she'll go in 3. Beatriz Castellano of Portugal will go in 4. And Gloria Hooper of Italy will go in 5. Hooper is the quickest of them on personal best, 7:25. The only athlete to go under 7:30 in this. And she helped Italy to a 4x100 metre bronze medal at the Europeans back in 2022. As we look back to the men's long jump, and it is our glorious leader, Jorge Odelin, the 18-year-old. That might have been a foul, but look how far he goes. He lands behind that scoreboard, and unfortunately, it is indeed a foul, but he still has command with 8:18. So, on your marks, these women for semi-final 2, top 3 to advance automatically. Lane 1, Marta Camaño of Spain. Lane 2, Arantxa Vasquez Quiroga of Spain. Lane 3, Nediam Vargas of Venezuela. Lane 4, Beatriz Castellano of Portugal. Lane 5, Gloria Hooper of Italy. Lane 6, Valeria Zapata of Spain. Lane 7, Laura Rios of Spain. And Lane 8, Ana Alvarino of Spain. And we see those central lanes very much to the fore here. Vargas going brilliantly, but look at Hooper coming through there over the last 20 metres. It was Vargas, Castellano and Hooper, the 3 who looked clear of the field on paper in lanes 3, 4 and 5. And indeed they pulled clear on the track. Vargas got an absolutely brilliant start there. She certainly led at 40 metres. I think she led at 50 and maybe even 55 metres. But for me, there's little doubt at the finish that Gloria Hooper, the 33-year-old Italian, came through and took that one when it mattered most. But all 3 automatically book their place in the final. That final will be coming up at 8:02 local time, just an hour and 5 minutes from now. Back to the long jump. Tiago Pereira, who's down in 7th position, and I think that's a foul. Let's just look for that scoreboard to perhaps turn red. Not that you ever want to see it, but I suspect he was over the board there. The bar still at 5:30 in the men's pole vault. We're still thinning the herd essentially there. I think 6 men left in that competition at the moment. And Fabio Marco Fantova will be taking his 3rd attempt very soon at 5:30. We have lost Alex Gracia. However, the likes of Juan Luis Bravo, Ander Martinez, Isidro Leva and Asier Anyorga have all gone clear. So 4 men clear at 5:30 in the men's pole vault. And presently, Fabio Marco Fantova will be trying to join them. And confirmation that Tiago Pereira did indeed foul his final attempt. But here is Sergio Coelho of Spain. 7:46, his best so far. He needs another 20 centimeters to get up to 5th. Currently has it down in 6th. Let's see if he can produce it here. He's been improving throughout this competition. 2 fouls, then 7:28, 7:42, 7:46. What's it going to be to finish things off? Can he improve that again? Don't think so. That looks like it came down around the 7:20-ish mark. If that board behind the sandpit is indeed accurate. And we see the old school measuring tape being utilised. And let's see what Coelho has produced in round 6 of the men's long jump. But it looks like he's going to be staying in 6th position. And just looking at the result of that second semi-final of the women's 60 metres, Gloria Hooper did take victory in 7:33 ahead of Nediem Vargas. 7:34, Beatriz Castellano of Portugal takes 3rd in 7:39, and then Marta Camaño, Laura Rios, 7:78 and 7:79. They'll have to see if those times are good enough. As we see Unai Loureiro in 8th position at the moment. What can he produce in the final round? So last chance saloon here for Loureiro. Let's see what he can produce. And it is a foul, unfortunately. So no joy for Loureiro. His competition is over. He finishes in 8th position. And just a few men left to go. About 5 jumps left on that men's long jump. And then that's all she wrote for that competition. Back to the men's pole vault. And Pedro Bordeaux of Portugal, who has just entered this competition at 5:30. Sorry, at 5:40 now the bar has been moved to. And Pedro Bordeaux moves right to the head of the standings, the Portuguese athlete. Meanwhile, Lucas Rodriguez in the men's long jump, 7:65 in the last round, has him in 5th. That is another valid jump, but don't think that's going to be an improvement by the looks of things for the Spaniard. Meanwhile, the bar now at 5:40 in the men's long jump. And just one man clear so far. And that's Bale from Ander Martinez de Tuerto. Went clear first time of asking at 5:30. But things are getting a little trickier at this point. And a reminder that there are 5 men left in this 6 men left in this competition. But now it's time for some middle distance action, and it's going to be the B final of the women's 1500 meters. There is Irna Begona Dominguez, Angela Gonzalez, Irina Navarro, Yara Prito, Sabela Martinez. Then the pacemaker is Noah Prieto. And on the outside, Estela Diaz. So 7.5 laps await those ladies in the 1500 meters. I'll pause momentarily to look back to the pole vault where the bar is at 5:40 and Fabio Marco. No joy there on his opening try at 5:40, but 2 more chances await. Meanwhile, back to the long jump, because it is the last chance for Gerson Balde to improve and try and replicate that magic Portuguese record he unleashed of 8:34 last week. That looks a big one. It looks very close to 8 meters again. He's been over 8 meters twice already today, and I mentioned that Portuguese record. That was just last weekend in Braga. 8:32 it was, his Portuguese record, indoor record. Surpasses his outdoor best. The man who finished 4th at the European Indoors last year, who finished 8th in the World Final, Gerson Balde. It's 8:14 it's come up as. So it's very close for Balde. It is a big improvement, but it is not enough to overtake Jorge Odelin. So Gerson Balde will finish in second. It is a great effort. He's been over 8 meters 3 times in his last 4 jumps there today. More great jumping from the Portuguese record holder, the 9-time national champion. But victory, it looks like, is going to go to this man. And indeed, yeah, just scanning the results there, confirming that Jorge Odelin, the youngest man in the field, just 18 years old, has taken victory. And with no pressure on, what can he produce here? That looks big too. That looks well over 8 meters from Odelin. Good on the board, I think. And look at the height and that leg shoot. That is just textbook. That's the kind of technique you would show a youngster if you're trying to teach him what great long jumping looks like. And so often the Cubans are just so well drilled, technically brilliant. 7.98 in the final round. It's no improvement for Odelin, but he won't care too much about that. In the second round, he went out to 8.18, backed it up with an 8.14. And sometimes certain field eventers can just be beautiful to watch in full flight, and Odelin is certainly one of them. 18 years old. Remember the name, Jorge Odelin. He is certainly going places in this sport. So it's early days here, and the pacemaker, Noah Prieto, is taking them through. Passing 300 meters there, and we break away for a bit of pole vault action, and it is Asier and Jorge Fernandez. And a brilliant first time clearance there from Fernandez over 5:40. But now back on track for the women's 1500 meters, and they're coming up to, this will be 500 meters or so, as we see update on how things are shaking out in that men's pole vault. The bar currently at 5:40. Pedro Bordeaux very much leading the way. His one jump entering the competition at 5:40 shot him straight to the head of the standings. So in this women's 1500 meters, some of the athletes to perhaps watch out: Laura Prieto, a 20-year-old who's run 4:34. Certainly expect to see her. She's in the blue there. think she's back in third. But the likes of Sabella Martinez, in fact, I think that's her in the blue in fourth at the moment. Just 17 years old. She's run 4:30 indoors already this year. She was second at the Spanish Under-18 Championships last year. As we see another clearance at 5:40 in the men's pole vault. That was Ander Martinez. So second time clearance it was for him over 5:40. He stays in fourth position overall. But now we're starting to come towards the business end of the women's 50B final of the 1500 metres. And we see a bit of a surge there from the youngster. Believe this is Sabella Martinez of Spain, who had some impressive strength. 9:51 as well for 3K. And I mentioned second in the Spanish Under-18 Championships last year, and she's just pulling clear of some of the other athletes around her at the moment. As we now check in on the women's shot put, so not much chance to get up to speed there on what exactly is happening in the B final of the women's 1500 metres. But we are, of course, underway in the women's shot put. And let's see how that is going as those readings start to come in. But in the women's B 1500 metres, Laura Prieto so into the last lap now and it's starting to come back together again. There's really not much to choose between these athletes. Sabella Martinez and the likes of Angela Gonzalez, I think it might be, who's just got to the lead. Or Irene Navarro is in there as well. And coming up from way back is Estela Diaz there in the green vest. But it is Martinez and Navarro. And look at this late charge. What a finish that is from Estela Diaz. 4:33 on the clock. Estela Diaz in that green vest. She had a best of 4:42, so she has smashed her personal best. Either way, whether she took victory or not, but she came from way back there. As we see Eliana Bandera in round 3 of this women's shot put. She's currently leading the way with 18:13, and that is a foul. No stepping out of the front of the circle is allowed in this discipline. But try and get up to speed on what's happening in this women's shot put. And it is Eliana Bandera leading the way with 18:13. Serena Vincent of Great Britain is second with 17 metres flat. And then Belén Tuimel of Spain back in third with 15:85. Here is Serena Vincent. Serena Vincent, who has an indoor PB of 17:33. That was just last weekend in Birmingham to win the British title, British indoor title. She was the British indoor champion last year as well, was Vincent. That third round effort has been measured. 17 metres has her in second at the moment. She would need 18:13 to get into the lead, which would be a big ask, way above her outdoor personal best. But it is 17:23 for Vincent in round 3. So she consolidates her position in second. She'll be a lot harder to depose. Serena Vincent throwing very well. That's very close to her indoor PB, just 10 centimetres down on what she threw last weekend to win the British title. Meanwhile, Fabio Marco just says no thank you to that attempt. Just runs through. So something a little bit amiss there for Fabio Marco. And he runs through the mat at impressive speed. But that was his third time failure there. So Fabio Marco bows out of the competition down in 6th place. And with that, we are down to 5. They are Pedro Buaro, Isidro Leva, Asier Anyorga, and Ander Martinez. And sorry, also Juan Luis Bravo. So next up on track, after a brilliant women's 1500 meters, it's going to be the C final of the men's 800 meters. And there is confirmation of that result. The 18-year-old jumps 8:18. Jorge Odelin of Cuba beats Gerson Balde, 8:14 in second. And there's the standings currently in the men's pole vault. Pedro Buardo, the sole Portuguese athlete in amongst a sea of Spaniards. Next up on track, it's going to be some 800 meter action. Everyone loves an indoor 800 meters. It's going to start with the C final of the men's 800 meters, and then we're going to have the B final. Then it's going to be women's A 1500 meters, and then we're going back to the hurdles, and we'll be having the A final of the men's 800 meters later. But there will be quite a busy track for this first of those men's 800 meters, the C final. 8 athletes slated to compete. We'll see if they all do indeed toe the line. Doesn't always happen. David Garcia of Portugal will certainly be one to watch in this C final. But back to the women's shot put. And Gianna Lago of Portugal is currently down in 4th position with 14:44. I have no idea if that was an improvement, but we'll await the measurement. Gianna Lago, as you see, 14:44 there. She's improving with each round so far. Let's see if she has managed it again here in round 4, 13:58. So the run comes to an end of improvement. She steps back a little, but stays in 4th position. Gianna Lago with 14:44. Now, Nuno Cordeira will be on the outside in this men's 800 meters. He has run a best of 1:48.40, 1:49.9 already this season. That was in Metz. Here is Nuno Alves Cordeiro, 1:48.8 his best. Then it is Alexandre Lucas. He is a 150 man outdoors, 152 his best indoors. But this man, I think, will be the big favourite here. David Garcia of Portugal in the Sporting Club de Portugal. 147 he's run indoors. He's a 146.5 man outdoors. Look out for him. He should be able to win this one any way he wants, but we're not too sure what kind of form he's in so far this year. In fact, he did run his indoor PB just last month, so he'll be one to watch in this. And then Ander Anglada or Shotanabe, there it is, I believe. Yeah, it is Tanabe. Shotanabe will be there in lane 2. A few withdrawals, so a little bit of confusion, just getting things in order on the start line, but just 5 athletes and no harm, at least for me, that was a false start, because some of the athletes we'd expected to be on the start line weren't on the start line, but gives us a chance to tee up the credentials of some of these contenders. I mentioned David Garcia of Portugal. He'll certainly be the favourite. Lifetime best indoors, 147.95 last month in Sabadell, which is close to Barcelona. On the other side of Spain to this event in Ourense is coming to you from Galicia. Juan Luis Bravo passed at 5:40, and Ander Martinez there at 5:50 now that the bar is at. And Juan Luis Bravo and Pedro Buardo over 5:50, but no joy there for Ander Martinez. So, C final of the men's 800 metres. And this time, no false starts, thankfully, and no disqualifications. It's good to see as well. So, let's see how this one plays out. The man who would expect to come home in front would be David Garcia of Portugal, who is in the middle there in the green and white stripes of Sporting, that famous multi-sport club in Portugal. He looks like he's going to take this one on. With the two men coming in from the outside, Nuno Cordeiro of Portugal so slots into second, and then there's Nuno Alves of Portugal, back in third at the moment. So it is very much an all-Portuguese affair at the moment. 1, 2 and 3 as they come through 300 metres there. And it's a pretty swift pace. And no surprise to see David Garcia taking control of this one. I think he's going to try and run the legs off everyone. He has, of course, run 147 this year. No one else in the field has run under 149. So we'd expect him to be the strongest one over this final 350 or so. He went through in about 53 seconds. So it's a good pace, but the reason he has company is it's not an extreme pace. Normally 53, you'd probably come back typically with a 56 if you're running the standard kind of pacing output. So no surprise that the other men in behind who will be targeting the sort of 149s are still in contact at the moment with David Garcia. But given how David Garcia has been running just last month, that lifetime indoor personal best, it will be a surprise if Nuno Cordeiro can get past him, or indeed Shotanabe of Japan, the 20-year-old who's moving up into second there on the last bend and will be trying his best to run down David Garcia. And he is sticking with him at the moment, but Garcia has the class, he has the speed, he has the strength, and he pulls clear now up the home straight. David Garcia of Portugal, the 22-year-old, 148.5 on the clock unofficially. It is Shotanabe of Japan in second, and then it was Nuno Cordeiro of Portugal, the teenager, just 19 years old, who held on for third, 148.52 it looks like coming up on the clock. And a comfortable win there for David Garcia. Meanwhile, back to the pole vault, and Asier Anyorga bails on his first attempt at 550. So Isidro Leva and Asier Anyorga, along with Ander Martinez, all record one failure at 550. Meanwhile, Pedro Boardo and Juan Luis Bravo all go clear. Or sorry, both go clear at 550. There's the standings in the women's shot put. Still relatively early days here. And here is Serena Vincent, 16.89 in round 4. She stays in second. What can she produce now in round 5? 2 chances left. Here's one of them. And that goes well out. And the official moves at pace to get to there. It's one of the most impressive feats of officiating, I always think. The ability to be able to spot the mark on those gymnastic mats. What has Serena Vincent produced in round 5? Measurement not quite. It's 17.06 it's just come through as. So it is no improvement for Vincent. She stays in second position, her best, with 17.23. Meanwhile, it is a second attempt for Asier, or for Ander Martinez. But it is a bail there from Ander Martinez. Second time failure for him. Meanwhile, women's shot put, and it is the leader, Eliana Bandera. Bandera, who is an 18.5 meter thrower at her best, 18.58. That was just a couple of weeks ago. World University Games silver medalist back in 2023. And that is a foul in round 5, but she stays in firm command with that 18.13. She leads by 90 centimetres over Serena Vincent, and then it is Belén Twimel of Spain back in third with 16.51. But all smiles for Bandera. She's in command going into round 6. And that is a brilliant clearance there at the second attempt by Isidro Leva. He gave it a good rattle on the way over, did Leva, but it stays on. He goes clear at 550 at the second attempt, and he joins Pedro Buaro and Juan Luis Bravo at the next height, which will be 560. And now things are really starting to get serious. But a brilliant clearance there by Isidro Leva at 550. His best outdoors, 552. His best indoors, 555. So he's really getting towards his lifetime best at the moment. And the next height he will face will be an outright lifetime best of 560. That'll be a tough one. Here is Gianna Lago of Spain in the women's shot put. This is round 6. She's down in 4th with 14.44. She's unlikely to improve her position because she would need over 2 meters to do that. Meanwhile, here is Asier Anyorga. Second attempt for him at 550. And he just opts out of that one. Midway through the jump. 560 is his season's best. So it is a height he has gone over before, Anyorga. But not this time. At least he'll have one more try at 550. Belen Twimel. 1651, her current best. Here she is in round 6, blowing a few kisses to the crowd, making the heart gesture with her hands. And that is a valid throw in round 6. 1651 she's currently on. See if she can improve that. But now we have more men's 800 meter action. And Abdesalem Ayouni that's Simone Barontini of Italy. And then here is Eric Guzman, who is a 146.5 man. 338 for 1500 meters as well this year. Here's Luke McCann of Ireland, a 27-year-old, an Olympian in Paris. He's on the comeback trail from injury. He's the 5th fastest Irishman ever at 800 metres and 5th fastest ever at 1500 metres. And there's been some good ones coming out of Ireland over the years, but Luke McCann on his way back. He's a 145 man at his best, but a 148.1 already this season. And it is David Cartiel of Spain, who's a 149 man. And then David Carranza, who's a 148 man at his best indoors. And then on the inside, Alberto Perez, who has run a best indoors of 151. But he has run 150 outdoors. So perhaps the men to watch here, the likes of Luke McCann for sure, who has run 148.13. Eric Guzman Gonzalez as well in the red. He goes in lane 5. Look out for those two. 147.89 in Sabadell. And the two men on the outside, Pedro Osorio in the white and Simone Barantini in the purple. That Puma strip. They look to be going out quite hard, but rocketing up on the inside there. Perhaps doing a pacemaking job, Alberto Perez. Yeah, I think he is slotting in there as pacemaker because he blasts through 200 meters in about 25 and change. In the white, back in second, it is Pedro Osorio. And then in third, it is Simone Barantini slotting in. Then it is in the red, Eric Guzman of Spain, the 24-year-old, who has been showing good strength. And then it is Luke McCann of Ireland in the black and green of that on-running group. And at the moment, it is a good, healthy pace being laid down here. The pacemaker's done a good job. They passed through in about 52 seconds, so perfectly set up at the moment. And it is Pedro Osorio at the moment back in second. Then Eric Guzman just on his heels. And now Luke McCann of Ireland moving up. He passes out Guzman. He's an aggressive racer, is Luke McCann. He likes to take it on and push it early. And right now he is pushing the pace. But at the moment it is Pedro Osorio who has command, which is always a good thing to have in the on an indoor race. Heading into the last lap with those tight turns. 1:20 on the clock. They're on for a decent time here. Pedro Osorio has command. Luke McCann from Ireland, though, back in second. He is now going to attack him up the back straight, and there goes Luke McCann. He has a great blend of talents, as Luke McCann, over 8 and 1500 metres. He has remarkable strength, but is having a trouble here getting past Pedro Osorio. It is a tough job to get past Osorio, but McCann comes wide and tries to attack him again. Osorio and McCann to the line. It's so close. McCann gets it. 1:47.8 on the clock. And the Dubliner, who is going step by step by step back from that knee surgery he had last year. He missed all of last year, but each race is getting better and better. Further up the track, and he's looking closer to his old brilliant self, Luke McCann, every time. So much work has been put into his comeback. 2 thumbs up from him. The 27-year-old whose younger sister Jodie was also an Olympian alongside him over 5,000 metres in Paris a couple of years ago. And I can assure you that is not Eric Guzman, but Luke McCann. And brilliant stuff from him. A brilliant win at the meeting Internacional Ourense. And he had a good run the other night as well. Over 1,500 metres in Lievan. And he is not too much lactate in those legs by the looks of things, because he is able to jog away. And he's looking pretty fresh as things stand. Great win for Luke McCann. Back to the pole vault, and it is our leader, Pedro Buardo, who is in command. There is confirmation of that. B final of the men's 800 metres. Luke McCann, brilliant strength from him. Takes it from Pedro Osorio. That's a season's best for McCann. And a good half second or so off his season's best. And then it is also a season's best for Osorio. In fact, that is an indoor personal best for Osorio back in second. Takes about a half a second off his indoor PB. So, brilliant B final there of that men's 800 metres. A final still to come. But firstly, we'll have the women's A 1500 metres. And Jodie McCann, who I mentioned, Luke's younger sister, will be trying to make it a double for the household in that A final at the 1500 metres, which is coming up in about 5 minutes' time. So, chance to get caught up on some track or field action at the moment. In the pole vault, Pedro Buardo, 1 failure at 560. Juan Luis Bravo will soon be taking his first attempt, as will Isidro Leva of Spain. There's 3 men left now. You can see those. So lots of indoor PBs there raining in by the looks of things. But there are now just 3 men left in the pole vault. Here is Bravo, Juan Luis Bravo. No joy for him in his first attempt. But this competition is between Pedro Buardo, Juan Luis Bravo, and Isidro Leva. The bar at 560. Buardo leads the way. In fact, it's a joint leader at the moment between Buardo and Bravo. Both of them have recorded 1 failure, and a reminder that it is no longer about the previous height, the number of failures at the previous height. It is about the number of overall failures that determines the countback situation. And Buardo and Bravo both only have 1 failure, which is the reason they're ahead of Leva, who has 2 failures so far in the competition. But anyone who can go over 560, you suspect that might be enough to do it. But so far, no one's over 560. It is Buardo and Bravo tied for the lead. So, can Leva do it? Can he be the first? I mentioned that extra failure, that little X at 5:10 has cost him in terms of the countback situation. That's the reason he is behind both Buardo and Bravo. And if he wants to beat them, then it's very simple. He has to get over this bar. He'll have 3 chances to do it. This is the first of them. Isidro Leva, and no joy, unfortunately, for him at 5:60. It's a run through. Action, of course, still ongoing in the women's shot put. We'll try and hopefully show you some of that, but in fact it now has concluded, that women's shot put. Eliana Bandera took victory with 18-13. No changes in the final round. Serena Vincent of Great Britain, another strong throw of 17-22, just behind her leading effort of 17-23. And Belén Twimil did improve her best mark to 16-80, but didn't improve her position. It kept her back in third. There is the lie of the land in the men's pole vault. Just 3 men left in the competition, still jumping. Pedro Buardo, Juan Luis Bravo, and Isidro Leva. The next track race, for all you middle distance fans, you don't have long to wait. About 2 minutes, the women's A 1500 metres will be getting underway, and perfect timing by the director. It's as if they're reading my mind. Straight over to the start line. There is Lucia Juan, who is going to be doing the pacing duties from the inside. She's a 2:03 800 metre runner. There's Maddie Mooney of Ireland. Switched her allegiance last year from the US. She's a 4:15 athlete indoors. There is Lucia Garcia. Garcia is a 4:29 athlete. That was just a couple of weeks ago in Ourense, as we see another attempt at 5:60 by Buardo, and that might well do it in terms of the race for overall victory, because at the second time of asking, Pedro Buardo goes clear. There is Naima Ait Alibu of Spain. She's a 4:12 athlete indoors, 4:09 outdoors. Here is Lucia Rodriguez. She's a 4:08 athlete outdoors, 4:16 indoors. And then Jodie McCann, she may or may not be aware that her older brother Luke just took victory. I'm sure she is aware in the 800 metres and might be inspired to try and do the same here. There is Niamh Carr of Dublin City Harriers in Ireland, the blue. She's a 4:16 athlete outdoors, 4:26 indoors. And this is her first 1500 metres for 2026. So those ladies just moments away from getting underway, 7.5 laps away. But a meeting record we just saw from Pedro Buardo to go clear and seize command of this men's pole vault competition. Now, can Juan Luis Bravo match it? No, he cannot. So away they go. 7 athletes set off in this women's 1500 metres. Now, how quick can they go? Pacemaker Lucia Juan takes them along. It is Naima Ait Alibu back in second, and Jodie McCann of Ireland back in third. And then slotting into fourth there in that orange vest, or blue vest it is, Lucia Garcia. So 200 metres covered in about 34 seconds. It's not too quick a pace, but that's about 4:08 pace or so. But ideally, the athletes being strung out here, anything around the 4:10 mark would be really good running for these women. Naima Ait Alibu, it looks like it's going to fall to her when the pacemaker steps aside. Alibu, the Spaniard, is in second at the moment, but is the de facto leader because the athlete out front is the pacemaker, the 26-year-old Ait Alibu. She's a 4:09 athlete at her best. That was run in 2024, but I mentioned that indoor PB recently of 4:12 in Sabadell. That was just about 4 weeks ago, and showing very good strength. Ait Alibu this year, 8:53, a personal best for 3,000 metres, and perhaps that's the reason she is really pushing this along. It is Jodie McCann of Ireland next in line there, back in third as we see them, but really second overall, but a little bit of a gap opening to Ait Alibu at the moment. And I think you can sensibly see Jodie McCann there just making a bit of an effort to try and close that, because even mentally, along with the effect of the slipstream and just cutting through the air, There is a big mental advantage to be gained by just maintaining real, true contact within a metre of the athlete in front of you. You can kind of just mentally switch off and pass those laps a bit easier. And she sensibly closes up there on Ait Alabu, who is in second. And then a little bit of a gap there. Lucia Garcia and Lucia Rodriguez in the blue there. They're in touch at the moment. And Niamh Card is, in fact, I think, hanging on at the back as we go back to the pole vault. And this is Isidro Leva. Second attempt for him. And that's a run through. And impressive editing there to get us back to this 1500 metres. Pacemaker checks her watch and just starts to maybe move wide, but it's going to be down to Naima Ait Alabu once she does step aside to try and push things along. Jodie McCann back in second now. And we're coming up towards, this will be 1,000 metres coming up. And well, let's see how fast they can go. If they were running 4-minute pace, it would be 2:40. So that'll be the calculation we're kind of looking for. So they're about 8 or 9 seconds outside that, I think. So I think it's around about the 4:12 pace they're moving at the moment. Well, that's my back of an envelope in my mind math. And with 2 laps to run now, it is Ait Alabu pushing things along. Jodie McCann, though, is in a great position for Ireland, and she may have just seen her brother Luke take victory over 800 metres, and he came from behind and with a brilliant kick up the home straight took victory. And it looks like this is starting to boil down to a head-to-head duel between Naima Ait Alabu and Jodie McCann. A bit of a gap then, just opening back to, I think that is Lucia Garcia back in third at the moment, but looks to be out of contact in the race for victory. And it looks like it could be just one woman headed for victory here, because Naima Ait Alabu is cranking up the pace. 3:39 on the clock as they go through the bell. She's looking at something in and around the kind of 4:12 to 4:14 range here. Ait Alabu, her indoor personal best of 4:12 just a few weeks ago in Sabadell on the other side of Spain. She was running a lot of cross country through the autumn and winter over 8k, 10k. All that strength is starting to pay off. 3,000 metre personal best recently. And she's also a 1,500 metre personal best. And it looks like she's now safe. Jodie McCann has given great chase back in second. She's headed for a good time as well. But it's not going to be enough to match Ait Alabu. 4:11 on the clock as the 26-year-old Spaniard sprints across the line. Jodie McCann back in second. And I think that was Lucia Garcia. No, I think that was, in fact... Lucia Rodriguez back in third, but I'll get that confirmed. But no doubt about the winner, Naima Ait Alabu. Very impressive. And she did it the hard way too. Followed the pacemaker, had to take it on. It was a great pacemaking job as well, but Naima Ait Alabu, very impressive there. You can see the effect of all that cross-country work. 1,500 metre trek specialists like her, they don't tend to love being out in the cross country running 8, 10k kind of distances through the autumn and the winter, but there is certainly value to be gleaned from it. And given how Naima Ait Alabu ran there, certainly very visible. And it is a meeting record now, confirmed now, 4:11.53 for Ait Alabu. She takes victory over Jodie McCann, 4:12.67 for the Dubliner back in second, the Irish woman. And then it was Lucia Rodriguez of Spain back in third, 4:16.03. And then it was Maddie Mooney and Niamh Kerr, both of Ireland, in fourth and fifth, 4:21.72 and then 4:25.67. And then Lucia Garcia, 4:26.87 for the 17-year-old back in sixth. So we've had a slew of meeting records, and one of them came in this men's pole vault through Pedro Boireau. 5:60 he cleared at his second attempt, and a brilliant clearance it was. I said at the time that it may well seal it, because kind of had a hunch looking at the lineups and looking at their form that whoever got over 5:60 first was going to be the winner of this. And if Isidro Leva doesn't manage to do the same here, that will have come true because Pedro Buerta has gone clear at 560. Isidro Leva needs this to join him and stay in this competition. It's a big ask and it's just beyond him today. So Isidro Leva finishes in third, 550 his best on the day, beaten on countback for second by his fellow Spaniard Juan Luis Bravo, and then the winner Pedro Buerta of Portugal takes victory with 560, and we'll see if he decides to keep jumping beyond that meeting record. So, next up on track, it will be the 60-meter hurdles final for men. That's coming up in about 6 minutes' time, 7 minutes' time. And we'll see if Luis Francois Mendy, that was one of the meeting records we had already this evening. 7:69 he ran in his semi-final earlier. As we see the presentation for, I think this is the men's 800 meters. No, it's not the men's 800 meters. Men's 400 meters, David Garcia. What a brilliant race that was. So back to the pole vault. Pedro Buerta, the only man left in the competition. And I wondered whether he would keep jumping, and of course he is still jumping. He's continuing on to see just how high he can go. Buerta he has already broken his indoor personal best with that 560 clearance. His previous best was 556 indoors. However, he has gone over 562 outdoors. That was in Syria, helped by the little bit of altitude up there. Back in 2025, that was last summer. And the Spanish indoor champion, or Portuguese indoor champion, I should say. We'll see what Buerta can produce. Apologies, I was looking at the wrong bio there for a second. Buerta has jumped far beyond 562 in fact. He jumped 582. Of course, the national record for Portugal, that was 2 years ago, indoors. Now, how high will he go? It looks like 577 he has now put the bar to. His season's best before tonight was 560. That was in Bordeaux last month. But Buerta, who is a 4-time national champion in Portugal, has now put the bar up to 577. And I'm just looking up the World Indoor qualifying list because only 12 men will make the World Indoors next month. And the entry standard is vicious. It's 590. But this would go a long way to earning him a place at the World Indoors. Pedro Buerta, 577 he just runs through. But of course, for those who don't hit that qualifying standard, just 4 men have hit that automatic qualifying standard for the World Indoors. But I suppose it has to be a bit of a ruthless qualifying criterion because only 12 men will make it. It will be a straight final at the World Indoors next month. But Pedro Barreau, I'm sure, is aware that the man in 10th at the moment, just to explain, I suppose, to those not familiar, world ranking situations changed a little bit for that event. It will go on your top performance on the drop down list in the qualifying period. And at the moment, the man in 12th in the final qualifying position is Torben Bilek with 570. But Simon Guttormsen is in 10th on 577. So I think this is a calculated risk and a calculated decision, really, by Boireau, aware that if he can jump 577, then it will very likely earn him a spot at the World Indoors. You would have to assume that some other athletes will jump in the 570s up towards 580 in the next week or two who want to earn their spot. But Boireau, his best position, his best mark in the qualifying period was 560. So that has him down in 27th on the drop down. And as I mentioned, only 12 men will make the World Indoors. So I strongly suspect that is the reason that Pedro Barreau has put the bar at 577. Because I think he knows that if he can get over that bar, it will very likely earn him a spot at World Indoors in that 12-man straight final next month in Kujavi Pomorce, which is the region around Tirun. And we see the presentation for the men's triple jump. The men's long jump. And that was a genuinely brilliant competition. 4 men going over 8 meters. And good to see 4 men on the podium. Perhaps as a result of that, they're all getting credited. 8:04, Lester Lescay down in 4th position. Aniel Molina of Cuba was 3rd with 8:07. Gerson Balde of Portugal 2nd with 8:14. And then Jorge Odelin of Cuba 8:18 to take victory. Brilliant stuff from the rising star of Cuban long jumping, Jorge Odelin. Remember that name. Meanwhile, back on the pole vault runway, Pedro Barreau is getting ready to take his second attempt at 577. It was a brilliant clearance at 560. And Boireau, who has racked up 4 national titles, he's only 24. And he's very much on the up. Now he's already got the meeting record. How high can he go? His Portuguese indoor record that he set, 582. It was 2 years ago now. His best outdoors is just 565. But obviously capable of improving that, but he just opts out of that one. So no joy there in the second attempt, but one last chance for Boireau to get it done. Now, back on track because it's the final of the men's 60-meter hurdles. And we saw such a brilliant performance earlier on by Luis Francois Mendy. Can he produce something special again here? It's a 769 meeting record earlier. There is David Vicente, 809. There is Gerson Vidal Iziguirre of Venezuela in the all-black strip. Rafael Santos of Portugal will be going in lane 4. But here's the favourite. In lane 5, Luis Francois Mendy. He was so impressive in the semi-final with that 7:69 clocking. Can he go quicker here? It was so relaxed. It was so impressive. Can he repeat the trick? Angel Diaz alongside him, another man who has run 7:69. He'll be in that orange strip. And then it is Hugo Vasquez in lane 7. 8:01 his best indoors. And finally, in lane 8 from Guinea-Bissau, personal best of 8:10 indoors, Ousmane Jumo. This should be a fascinating final, but really it all revolves around the man in lane 5, Luis Francois Mendy. Mendy of Senegal, 26 years old, semi-finalist in the 110 hurdles last year in Tokyo, All-African Games and African champion back in 2024. He is a 13:18 man outdoors. That national record for Senegal was back in 2023. However, lifetime best indoors in Nantes just last month, 4 weeks ago now, 7:68. He was close to that already this evening, 7:69. How quick can he go here in this final, and can he get it done? Lane 1, Jorge Juan. Lane 2, David Vicente. Lane 3, Gerson Vidal. Lane 4, Rafael Santos. Lane 5, Luis Francois Mendy. 6, Angel Diaz. 7, Hugo Vasquez. And 8, Ousmane Jumo. Away they go. It's a pretty even start, but Mendy is going very well there in the middle. Santos going well as well alongside him, but it is Mendy now pulling clear by a long way. Luis Francois Mendy, the favourite, delivers the goods at the meeting Internacional Ourense. And you see, he was, I think, out well there. Santos also going well in the lane beside. And it's pretty even at this point, but Mendy, who just has that class, he just has that crisp technique over the hurdles and so quick between them. It is very close there for second. Vasquez, Diaz, 7:63 it is. 7:63 from Luis Francois Mendy. That is extraordinary running, because that is a massive lifetime best if confirmed. We'll await the confirmation of that, but it looks like Luis Francois Mendy has smashed his personal best, and that will be another meeting record for the star from Senegal, if indeed that is confirmed. He pulled way clear. In fact, it is confirmed at 7:62. It has come through. So Luis Francois Mendy has taken 0.06 of a second off his lifetime best. What a run that is by Mendy. Gerson Vidal Iziguirre back in second with 7:85. And then it is Angel Diaz back in third, 7:85 for him. Rafael Santos also way under 8 seconds, back in fourth. So brilliant running by Luis Francois Mendy, the African champion in 2024, the world silver medal, or semi-finalist I should say, in Tokyo last year. He is making a flying start to 2026. Now back to the pole vault runway, because it's Last Chance Saloon. 5:77 is the bar for Pedro Boiro. Let's see if he can go clear. Victory is secured, but he wants to book his spot at World Indoors. This would go a long way to doing that. Can he do it? Pedro Boiro. Not this time. It's a third-time failure for Boiro, but nonetheless, it will be victory. An impressive victory it will be. Pedro Boiro, his competition comes to an end, but it is a very impressive clearance at 5:60 for him, and he'll have a few more weeks and a few more chances to try and jump in the 570s and earn a spot at World Indoors. But it has to make do with 5:60 on this night. It is a very good clearance nonetheless, and he takes victory in a meeting record. Second place goes to Juan Luis Bravo of Spain, 5:50 for him. He edges his compatriot Isidro Leva on countback to second. also over 550 leva. So that was the men's pole vault, and all the field event action is now complete, which means that we just have 2 races left on the track. And those 2 races are the 60 metres for women, the final, and then the 800 metres for men will be coming up after that. We're just 5 minutes away from the women's 60 metre final, so we'll talk you through some of the big contenders there. And then about 7:15 Portuguese time, or British or Irish time, but 8:15 Central European time and Spanish time, the men's 800 metres A final will be rounding things off for the 2026 edition of Meeting Internacional Ourense. And it looks like we had a national record for Gerson Isigere. So the action is edging towards the finish here at Meeting Internacional Ourense. Just 2 races left. One up that central track, the women's 60 metre final. And then the men's A 800 metres will be rounding things off at 8:15 local time. And that should be a cracker to finish on. So in the semi-finals earlier, in that women's 60 metres, Gloria Hooper was impressive in just about edging victory the Italian in the second of those semi-finals in 7:33 ahead of Nidiam Vargas of Venezuela. Beatriz Castellano, 7:39, took the third automatic position. But in the first semi-final, Andrea Purica, so impressive. 7:22, one of the meeting records, one of many meeting records we saw this evening. But Andrea Purica, the 30-year-old from Venezuela, 7:22. It was a brilliant run. It was very, very close to her lifetime best. And let's see if she can go even quicker, and indeed if she can take victory. You can see the athletes are doing their final couple of strides. We're just a couple of minutes away from the start of the women's 60 metre final. Andrea Purica. How quick can she go? She was a standout athlete in the heats, but it is a pretty quick turnaround. That was only about an hour ago. They'll be used to that, of course, but the 3-time national champion will be going in lane 6 here. We'll see just how quick she can go. So the full lineup, we'll take you through them. We'll be starting from the inside. On the inside, it will be from Spain, Paula Conde. 7:63 athlete at her best. That was run just last weekend on this same track. And we'll see if she can go quicker than that here. Great for her to be in the final. Just 17 years old. Going up against some seasoned internationals. Alongside her is Beatriz Castellano, who took third. And there is Paula Conde. And there is Beatriz Castellano, 7:35 athlete. 7:33, in fact, athlete her best. That graphic is wrong, but that was just last weekend in Braga, so perhaps not quite updated yet. Here is Nediam Vargas of Venezuela. She'll be going in lane 3. Look out for her. Gloria Hooper will be alongside her from Italy, not France. 7:25 her best, Gloria Hooper. That was run last year in Apeldoorn at the European Indoors. Beatriz Andrade will be going in lane 5. The Portuguese athlete, 7:33 her best. That was run last year in Lisbon. Then here is Andrea Purica of Venezuela, 7:22. So impressive in that semi-final. 7:20 is the national record for Venezuela that she ran 9 years ago. She could be ready to challenge that this evening. Then in lane 7, Cristina Garrido of Spain, 7:61 her best. And then on the very outside, Marta Camaño, 7:78 is her lifetime best, which she'll be attacking from that outside lane. But the athlete to watch here, no doubt about it, it has to be Andrea Purica of Venezuela. She's in lane 6 in that red and navy strip. Purica was so impressive, the 30-year-old. She's a 3-time national champion in Venezuela. And she's been in excellent form this season. 7:33 last month in Valencia, just blowing off some of the cobwebs. But 7:22 this evening to win the semi-final. And how quick can she go in the final? And can the likes of Gloria Hooper or Beatriz Andrade or Nediam Vargas, her Venezuelan compatriot in lane 3, can they challenge her? But the athlete, no doubt to watch, is in lane 6 in the red and navy, Andrea Purica of Venezuela. The women's 60-metre final. Away they go. Purica is off to a brilliant start, and now Purica is starting to pull clear. Can anyone go with her? I don't think they can. It's going to be Purica. She sticks her chest out on the line and she edges it from Gloria Hooper. The Italian was coming home very well. She kept Purica very honest there over that final 20-30 metres. Just maintaining her pace brilliantly in the middle lanes there. The 2 tallest athletes in the field there. You can see just in that last 20-30 metres, that height doesn't really help them out of the blocks, but it certainly helps them once they're fully open to their running. And Andrea Purica of Venezuela takes victory. Andrea Purica, you can see there just keeping that head down, coming out of the drive phase. 7:26 it is now confirmed. She wins by just 1/100th of a second. But I think even though it was 100th of a second, even just looking at that angle, you knew there was zero doubt about that. Andrea Purica takes victory in 7:26. Gloria Hooper of Italy finishes runner-up. And then it is Beatriz Castellano of Portugal back in third, 7:34. And then 2 Venezuelans in the top 4, Nediam Vargas back in 4th, 7:36. But all smiles for Andrea Purica. She's got the win. She's got the bouquet of flowers. And she'll now be having a word with the MC. And she's been given the placard for a national record, but I'm not exactly understanding why, because Andrea Purica certainly ran 7:22 back in 2017. Or sorry, 7:20 back in 2017. So I'm not sure that was the right placard she was given. Maybe it should have been the meeting record. But maybe we'll hear what she has to say here, and I'll try and put my meek Spanish or weak Spanish to some use and try and understand what she's saying. Yeah, so Purika there just saying that it's her first time coming to this event and she met her expectations. She is delighted. She's very content with the result. And she said it felt like home. So great win for Andrea Purika. And the host there with the mic just saying it was indeed a meeting record, but no mention of the national record, of course. So I think that they perhaps just gave her the wrong placard there to hold up for the pictures. But Andrea Purika taking victory. 7:26 in the final, 7:22 earlier on. That'll remain as the meeting record. And she's a woman in demand now with all the local youngsters who will have a memento to take home from meeting a truly world-class operator. Andrea Purika takes victory in the women's 60 metres. Brilliant performance from the Venezuelan, who's running better than ever at the age of 30. So with that, we just have one race left, and it is the A men's 800 metres, which is now just about 6 or 7 minutes away. That'll be a great chance to tee up some of the athletes. Hopefully we'll get a good look at them on the start line and we'll be able to see exactly what's happening. There will be 7 athletes, it looks like, going to the line, including the former European indoor champion Adrian Ben of Spain, the 27-year-old, a 3-time national champion. He'll be one of the stars of this concluding race. Adrian Ben there, third from the top. Henry Jonas comes in good form as well, having finished third at the British Indoor Championships last weekend. And we'll see how he fares against the Spanish Armada that's alongside him. And Ivan Pilica of Switzerland also adding a bit of international flavour as well. He's a 144 man. So that was outdoors, of course. But indoors his best is 146.89. So, of course, I think some of those personal bests are a bit of a blend between outdoor times, because Adrian Ben has run, I'm not sure how they have 144 for him, because his outdoor personal best is quicker than that, but his indoor personal best is slower than that. He has run 143.9, Adrian Ben, indoors. But his outdoors, yes. His indoor personal best is 145.39. So that's not his season's best or his personal best, unless he ran some race in secret. But Adrian Ben, European indoor champion, will certainly be one to watch here. But this is a race that really is loaded with talent. There's a lot of good athletes in here. Juan Ignacio Perez as well of Spain's in there. He's 145 outdoors last year, 147 just recently. Elvin Huso Canales, of course, of Spain, who sprung a huge surprise to win bronze at the World Indoor Championships in Nanjing last year. What a run that was. Of course, he ran in the Olympics in Paris, clocked a 144 at the Olympics in Paris as well, did Canales. So look out for him, the 24-year-old. And then a real rising talent in Spanish athletics, Ronaldo Olivo. And here they come, the 7 athletes for the concluding event at the meeting Internacional Ourense. It's a beautiful arena, really, isn't it? It's just a great size for an event of this stature. Not too big, not too small. This is a World Athletics Indoor Tour Challenger meeting, so obviously it's a couple of rungs down from the likes of what we saw in Lievan or in New York, the Millrose Games. There is Canales. He is a big kicker. He ran 144. Indoor Spanish record. He is still the Spanish record holder indoors at 144.65. But this season Canales has run 146.86. There is Ben in the all red one piece. Pilica on the outside, the tall Swiss athlete, 25 years old. He ran 144.53 last year. So there's 4 5 men in this field who have run 1:44 or indeed quicker in the case of Adrian Ben, the 2023 European Indoor Champion. And Adrian Ben will be lining up in lane 3. There is Belitsa alongside Lifo. Ronaldo Alifo is a real rising star. He was the Spanish under-23 champion over 800 metres last year. On the left, he's a big talent. He hasn't run an 800 yet this year, but he's been running a good few 1500 metres, working on that strength. Ran a 3:40, but Belitsa to his right, the 25-year-old, 5th at the World University Games last year in the final. He won at the World Championships as well in Tokyo, went out in the heats there. Here is Canales, who was an Olympian 2 years ago. Canales, 3rd at the World Indoor Championships, a bronze medalist last year, 5th at the European Indoors. What a move forward that was, and the Spanish indoor record holder. From that powerhouse club, Playas de Castellón, here is Juan Ignacio Perez, the 25-year-old. He's a 1:47 man at his best indoors, but he has run 1:45.91 outdoors. That's the times you're seeing listed there. And then Adrian Ben of Spain, 27 years old now, 3 times a national champion over 800 metres in Spain. 1:45.39 his best outdoors, 1:43.92 his best indoors. He is a physio, studied a physio back in the day in Galicia. He is from this part of Spain. It'll be fascinating to see how he goes here. Here's Henry Jonas, the 20-year-old, a real rising talent of British athletics as well. 1:44 he ran last year, finishing 5th in the European Under-23 final in Bergen. And last year he was also the British University's 1500 metre champion. And then on the outside in the red and blue strip of Barcelona, I was going to say FC Barcelona, but that would be the football branch of that multi-sport club. This is Ryan Barcala, the 19-year-old, who has a best outdoors of 1:47, but indoors this year he ran his lifetime best of 1:49 in Salamanca. So this is going to be quite the dust up here. It's very hard to know which way this will go, but we're about to find out. And you see Barcala there on the inside lane is just sprinting to try and get to the front there, because I think he's on pacemaking duties. And who will come home in front? It'll be very interesting to see who decides to take this on. It looks like Canales is very keen, and Ben, to get moving there. Ben looks like he's going to slot in behind the pacemaker. Will Canales decide to go past him? He will not. Belitsa also moving in from the inside, but he slots in behind Canales. So the pacemaker takes them along here. Adrian Ben, the former European indoor champion, slots into second. Then it is Elvin Josu Canales, the world indoor bronze medalist last year, back in 3rd. So 2 major medalists for Spain on the global and European stage in 2nd and 3rd at the moment, followed by Switzerland's Ivan Pelitza. And then it is Juan Ignacio Perez in the green there of his club, Playas Castellón, back in 5th as we look at them. They're moving down the back straight, and now the pacemaker will step aside quite soon, and Adrian Ben will be left in front, and this is going to be an intriguing decision for Ben. Does he really push on from here, or does he just back off just a little? And it looks like he has decided to push on, but Canales has got a great run into this race now. He will be able to point and shoot over this final lap. 1:19 or so on the clock as they pass through. It is a quick enough time at the moment if they can keep this going. It is Adrian Ben ahead of Elvin Josu Canales. They're just opening up a little bit of an advantage over Ivan Pelitza, and then it is Juan Ignacio Perez back in 4th, but it looks to be a 2-man race for the win. It is Adrian Ben against Josu Canales. Ben versus Canales. Ben has it at the moment, but now Canales moves out. Can he get up to Ben? No! Ben digs in. Ben takes it. 1:45 on the clock. Adrian Ben, the man from Galicia, he does it in his home region. Adrian Ben takes victory from the front in brilliant style at the meeting Internacional Ourense. What a win that was by Ben. Well, he is a decorated athlete, and the man he had to watch most, Elvin Josu Canales, was very much on his tail there over that last 300. I said there was a decision to make. He could have backed off. He could have just eased a little, but I think he wanted to also run a strong time, not just to win, but Adrian Ben, who was 5th in the Olympic final over 800 metres in Tokyo. He just tells all the impatient kids he will come back. He'll sign all those autographs. He will take those selfies. Just give the man a moment to do a lap and get the legs spinning. And confirmation now coming through. It is a meeting record for Adrian Ben. 1:45.14. Elvin Josu Canales takes second, 1:45.44. Ivan Pilica of Switzerland third in 1:45.99. And it was Ronaldo Olivo coming through for fourth, 1:46.52. And then Juan Ignacio Perez just faded a bit, 1:46.69 for fifth. And it was Henry Jonas back in sixth. And a good job too by the pacemaker Ryan Barcala getting that moving. 52 seconds or so, or maybe just a touch under it at 400 metres, and a good job from that inside lane by him. And Adrian Ben rewarded with a meeting record and a victory, and several hundred high fives, or medium-sized fives, medium height fives that he's dishing out there to all the local youngsters, and how brilliant that is to see. Adrian Ben, of course, who came so close to an Olympic medal back in 2021 in Tokyo, 5th place in that final. But he's got medals since then. European indoor title in 2023. He was a steeplechaser many years ago. He ran at the World Under-18 Championships. 6th in that as a steeplechaser back in 2015. He was but a kid back then. But now he's 27 years old. In the prime of his career, Adrian Ben. He ran a 1,000 metre PB. Recently, 2:16 in Madrid, and also a 3:37 1500 metres, something you often see 800 metre specialists do at this time of year as they come out of that kind of winter of heavy training and aerobic base work, just running over distance, and then they start transitioning down. And you can see how good is that to see the man from Galicia being followed around by hundreds of youngsters. He'll be a big celebrity in this area. They love their athletics in Spain. And anyone who's won a European indoor title and gone so close to an Olympic medal, you can be sure that in his home region he will be lauded as an icon. That is what Adrian Ben is. And in the final race of the night, it was teed up beautifully. And this was absolutely no gimme for Adrian Ben. There was a tough opposition laid down in the form of a world indoor medalist last year, Elvin Josu Canales. He finishes a close second, but in the end, it is Adrian Ben who is the king, and he takes victory, 1:45.14, and that is an indoor personal best, and it looks like a Galician record there. So that time for Adrian Ben takes 0.25 off his previous indoor best that he ran in Madrid last year. And I think he's going to have a long night. I hope he doesn't have any threshold training to do or after this, as many track middle distance runners do, because I think he's going to be spending a lot of time signing a lot of autographs for those youngsters. But what a beautiful image that is to sign off from this year's edition of the meeting Internacional Ourense. A meeting record to close things out by the local hero Adrian Ben. Brilliant performance by the 27-year-old. So that just about does it. A reminder, stay tuned to European Athletics website and indeed social media channels. They've been bringing you dozens of live streams from various events in recent weeks and months, and they will be continuing to bring them. Action from the road, from cross country, from track. So much live action being brought to you by European Athletics. And let's just listen in to see what Adrian Ben has to say. I know you won't be able to hear, but I'll have a listen and let you know in my best translation just what Adrian Ben says. So, Adrian Ben there just saying a huge thank you to the crowd. He said he tried to run 144 this evening. He said he gave it absolutely everything. It wasn't to be, but he's basically very happy to get to win. So, at least I think that's what he said. My Spanish could use some work. But anyway, on that note, we'll bring this production to a close. Thank you very much to all those joining us over the last few hours on this European Athletics live stream. A reminder to stay tuned to the European Athletics social media platforms and indeed website in the weeks and months ahead. Lots more events online this weekend and beyond. And indeed, into the outdoor season will be brought to you live by European Athletics. But for me, Cathal Dennehy, it's been a pleasure to join you tonight. It's goodbye for now.